Morning, everyone. Let's go on the record. Our guest this Sunday is former White House Chief of Staff and New Hampshire Governor John Sununu. His new book on his old boss and what he thinks of the current state of the presidential primary race. Plus, Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey takes on Steve Wynn over traffic. Could it be a major roadblock for this casino in Everett? And
a super crowded GOP presidential field makes for a super complicated question of how to do a debate.
From WCPB Boston, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill, today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. Thank you for joining us at OTR this morning. Our guest this week is the former New Hampshire Governor and the White House Chief of Staff, John Sununu. He has a new book out. It's called The Quiet Man, The Indispensable Presidency of George H.W. Bush. Governor Sununu, we'd like to thank you for joining us on the record this morning, and we have a copy of the book that's going to sit right here. So first of all, to be clear, when you talk about the quiet man, it's not you, it's the president, right?
No, it would not be
Nobody
him.
will make that mistake.
I want to make sure we're clear.
So we hear the former president, took a little bit of a tumble this past week. How's he doing?
Well, the latest I've seen on the emails that are coming out of Maine is that he's doing fine.
He didn't get to jump out of his plane this year, did he?
Well, I don't think Barbara was going to let him do it this year. He might get away with it on his 95th, but we'll have to see.
He did it on his 90th, right?
He did it on his 90th last year.
He's 91.
But you expect that he'll be out of the hospital soon and back at his home in Kennybunk.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go back up and see him after he's back.
Let's talk about the book. You wrote the book because you said that the president is too modest to brag about his own accomplishments. So what do you think the public should know about President George H.W. Bush?
Well, number one, the public has a sense that he was a great foreign policy president, certainly nurtured the collapse of the Soviet Union, took a quick effort to get Saddam out of Kuwait, so they understand that. But beyond that, I'd like him to at least understand that he was a great domestic policy president. George Bush passed more domestic legislation than any president except Lyndon Johnson and Franklin Roosevelt. And it was good, significant legislation: Clean Air, Energy Deregulation, Civil Rights Bill, Americans with Disabilities Act, agricultural reform, a whole host of legislation that even today have significant impacts.
Some would argue that it's probably because he had a cooperative Democratic colleagues in Congress, no?
Well, it was a Congress controlled by the Democrats quite significantly. Tom Foley was the Speaker. He had 260 to 175. George Mitchell was in the Senate, 55 to 45. But the secret is that George Bush worked the process. He didn't just pass a message to Congress saying, I want this. He brought folks in constantly. Danny Rostenkowski was chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. While we were doing the budget, we had Dan Rostenkowski come in and meet one-on-one with the president at least 24 times. And to work out details.
But Governor, you know that most of America might not appreciate the whole list of things you just mentioned. Most of America remembers George H.W. Bush looking into the camera and saying, "Read my lips, no new taxes." And
he suffered the political consequences of it. But even that bill, the budget agreement of 1990, was a bill that cut spending 3.5 times as much as the taxes he got. And it produced, because it had rules for budgeting that had to be reestablished, that he established, caps on spending. It produced all the surpluses that Bill Clinton loves to take credit for, and the growth of the 1990s that was one of the greatest growth periods the country's ever had. So he took the political hit for the benefit of the country.
One factor that really stood out in that administration is sort of like the outsized personalities that dominated his years at the White House. We had Dick Cheney, we had Robert Gates, we had Colin Powell, Roger Ailes, and of course you. So I guess, has that era in American politics ended?
No, the key to everything, including dealing with gridlock or problems with Congress or what's going on around the world or leadership or attracting good people, the key to everything is presidential leadership. You get a president that knows how to lead, and we'll be back to those days of getting good results.
But as far as the outsized personalities around him, we haven't seen quite the same thing in the succeeding administrations.
But the president has to be a president that serves as a magnet for personalities of that nature. And people like that are not going to work for somebody that they don't really respect.
So let's talk about, here we are, what goes around comes around. This year, in 2015, there is a Bush and a Clinton running for president. It says Jeb Bush, if you will. You know Dad. What about Jeb
Well,
Bush?
I'm trying to avoid making any endorsements in this race. I've got too many friends in it. But I will say I do lean towards governors and former governors. They've dealt as senior executives, chief executives.
And being a governor yourself in the past.
And of course, but they've had to work with legislatures. They'd have to make decisions in which they can't hide in the crowd of a legislature. And so I think the mess we're in today needs a governor or a former governor. I think Jeb's record is a great record. I think Walker has a great record. Christie's done very well. I think Kasich has done well. The Republicans have a handful of governors and former governors that could do very well as president.
But with Bush as a last name, is that going to be more of a help or a hindrance?
It's both.
Especially in the
It's
Granite
both.
State.
There are positives to it and there are negatives to it. And
But in the Granite State?
the art form for Jeb is how he maximizes the positives and minimizes the negatives. And you can't say what it's going to be. You can say what the potential is, and then you have to see how Jeb handles it in the details of the primary.
I guess what I'm asking is, should he spend more time showing how different he is from his brother and his father, or less time doing that?
Well, he should spend time showing that on those traits that the public loves in the family, that he's like that, and any of the traits that he may sense that they don't like, he can distance himself. It's an art form.
I have to ask you very quickly, do you think Americans are exhausted by having Bush and Clinton as candidates, and do you think it hurts both of them?
I think Americans give a harder look to a candidate that comes out of what is perceived to be a legacy kind of a situation. And I think it's a harder race, believe it or not, for those folks to run. But once they overcome the hurdle of defining their own credibility, then I think it becomes a plus.
We have hit the point where we're going to do the OTR pop quiz. Are you ready, Governor?
Sure.
Would you like to be called Governor or Chief
Well, in
of
this
Staff?
case, we should call him Professor.
Hey you,
Hey,
hey
you.
you.
Hey, you, are you ready? Professor.
Professor, for here we call him
I was that
Professor.
for a few years.
I know, that's why I said
You just mentioned Scott Walker. Scott Walker is the latest candidate to enter the race, and he did not graduate from college. And there have been 9 presidents who have not graduated from college. Who was the last one to have not graduated from college?
That's a good question. Harrison?
Truman is the last one.
Oh, Harry. Truman, of course. That's right.
Amazingly,
That's right. Yeah.
George Washington and Abraham Lincoln didn't
That's right.
graduate from college either. According to the U.S. News and World Report, which declared Republican candidate has spent the least amount of time in New Hampshire so far?
Walker.
Rick Santorum, according to the numbers that
Well,
we
the
have.
two of them were supposedly...
Walker would be, only because he's new, right?
Yeah.
Very good. The Governor, Chief of Staff Professor is with us. We're on the OTR Pop Quiz. Stay with us.